Okay, well, welcome everybody to another episode of Chocolate Travels. I'm here with Luciana from Ara Cacao in Brazil, but she's talking to us from Utah right now. So, Luciana, let's get right into it. What motivated you to get into the world of bean to bar chocolate?
So actually, once I heard that the chocolate words like we have cocoa fever, that once you were bite by the moth
Ah.
of the cocoa fever, don't forget about everything you were in and you cannot go out.
Okay.
So that's a very good question because I'm a food engineer. And then when I was in college and started to look for a job, the Barricalebo hired me, And since that, I never more left the chocolate world. But what's happening in the middle of this travel, was that in a moment, I had my career growing and I have, everything was doing well. But I have the feeling that something was missing. I don't feel very comfortable with my career because my idea to be a food engineer was to do something good for the people and left something good for the world. And to work in a corporation, I just had the feeling that I had my own, my own interest and that is just my comfortable life.
Right.
And
So what you were trying to achieve, you couldn't really achieve where you were working, basically.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And then I decided to quit and change my life. As many of us, in the bean to bar world, you heard a lot about that, the people just left the old career and changed their life. And I did the same. And, I realized that I have some knowledge that could contribute so much, but now in a positive cycle, in a good way. And then I decided to open the Ara Cacao, that is a consulting company to offer knowledge and to help to empower the farmers, the cocoa farmers that in Brazil I'm very close of them, and also the chocolate maker that want, to go into the business and to make chocolate as profession.
Okay. And would you say, is there a demand for this in the craft chocolate world, this research and development and consultation? Do you feel like a lot of people need this?
Yes, yes. So actually, I'm very happy at this moment, because in Brazil, especially in Brazil, I want to open my doors for the world, but for sure, the most of my clients comes from Brazil. And what's happened, it's in this specific market, it's very common that the people comes from different backgrounds, lawyers, doctor, artists, whatever. And they have the passion for chocolate, but they don't have the background. They don't have any food science background to go into the marketing. So if they want to make chocolate at home, that's fine because it's just a research and the right and wrong way, and then you get your chocolate. But if you really want, to do a business and to grow and to make money with that, it's necessary, have some knowledge, some answers, and that's where I come. I can, help with the formulations. I can help with regulations or shelf life or range and show equipment and everything that is necessary that is for people that, want to get into the business but don't have any experience.
Right.
It's super hard. That maybe they can, after 2 or 4 or even 5 years doing research by themselves, but working with me is much fast the
Right.
way that.
So yeah, like you said, a lot of chocolate makers, it's trial and error. They just experiment, they get a little bit of information here, a little bit there, but it takes, it takes a long time to fine tune it, whereas they can come to you and you
Yeah.
can give them the answers they need right away. And it's much more
Yes.
efficient that way. Is that
Yes.
something you do only in person or do you do it virtually as well these days?
Virtually as well, and works pretty well, for sure we still have so much thing that it's still nice to be in touch,
Of course, right.
but even to try sample, even to experience techniques, it's possible online. And I think the most important things to say, I'm a food engineer, so I come from the industry background. So the machines, the corporations, the numbers, everything. But in another way, I also have the spirit of the bean to bar. So what I offer is to cross these two worlds. I work in a collaboration with the customer. I don't offer them just my knowledge and a read recipe and the things that I know. I understand what they want to offer for their client, their customer, and we put everything together and create, a balance between this empirical world for chocolate that you want to explore, you want to interpret the chocolate from different oranges and to offer different experience for our clients. And the information, the background from food science.
Okay. Yeah. So it sounds like you have, for me, for instance, I grew up, my background is mostly in the kitchen, right? So I have a lot of hands-on experience. I don't have a lot of corporate world numbers, things like that, right? So, it's beneficial if you want to really grow a company to have that sort of knowledge, especially if you want to do it on a larger scale. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, and important, the not other point, it's important not to put everybody in the same box, the corporation box that I
Right.
won't be anymore,
Exactly. You
And
can use something from there to help, because big corporations are big because they know how to manage a business properly, right? But it doesn't mean they always have the passion, obviously, or the that idea. Like the reason why I'm in this is for the craft of chocolate making. And in big companies, the craft is not usually the most important thing, right? So you're trying to get the best of both and offer it to people, which is really nice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
What are most people surprised about when they come to you? So like you said, you have a lot of people that are, lawyers, engineers, whatever, different backgrounds, and they want to start making chocolate. So what are the biggest challenges that they face coming into the world of chocolate, in the kitchen, things like that? What are they surprised about? What do you see often with people?
Yeah. So actually, the bean to bar, what we want is to make chocolate simple as possible, nibs and sugar. And usually most people, learn how to make chocolate by internet, for example. And they think that it's just a matter to purchase a good cocoa beans and put it sugar and nibs in the melanger, and you have a very nice chocolate because we spend long hours and you purchase very nice beans. But in order to do a very good chocolate, we have so many different states. And what I show the people that come, to work with me, and it's how to understand the nibs, how to understand the beans, and how to manage all the parameters that we have during the whole process, and to make the chocolate that it's your signature. So it's much more than put the cocoa beans in the beamer and press 1, 2, 3, or 4 stage. And you have to understand what you can develop with these specific beans, how to purchase the beans, what is a good bean, what is a bad bean,
I remember talking to a chocolatier once who didn't seem to really appreciate the whole craft chocolate movement. He was used to his, Calabo chocolate, making his bonbons. And he goes, I don't understand the big deal. Anyone can grind up cocoa beans and make chocolate, right? And it's true. I mean, anyone can take flour and butter and make croissants, but not everyone can do a beautiful, perfect croissant, right? So
Yeah.
there's a lot more to it. Obviously, anyone can grind up cocoa beans, not a problem. But to make it taste, there's two things. Is some people, when they get in, they're like, I want to make chocolate myself, but I want it to taste like the chocolate I'm used to, the commercial chocolate, right? But then they realize getting into bean to bar into craft chocolate that that's not actually the best type of chocolate. That's not optimal. There's other flavors. There's other satisfying elements of chocolate that they've never experienced. So do you find that a lot of people that come to you, do they understand this depth of flavor to cacao, or do they have no clue sort of about craft chocolate?
Yeah. So usually, the people that come to me believe that if they purchase the beans from someone that are trustable, they are in a good hands. That the problem is not the trustability of the person. Maybe it's a very good guy that sold the beans for you, but you have to understand if that kind of profile match with what you want to offer. And this, it's something that you have to learn how to do it, and if the beans don't, we cannot say that the beans comes from one region, that it means that it's a good beans, oh, this beans come from Ecuador, Venezuela, Brazil, wherever. Even inside of Brazil, with different farm, if they don't have a very good protocol of the fermentation, or even if he does or she does, depends, maybe exactly in this batch something was wrong. And if you just accept the beans and don't know how to recognize what is good and what's medium and what's bad, you are just in the hand of the people. And you go ahead.
No, go ahead. You finish.
Yeah, just to continue, it's the same thing with the other parameters. It's not a matter just to put the beans in the oven and let beans for like 20 minutes for 110 degrees Celsius, and that it would be fine. You have to understand what that beans is asking for you as for flavor profile. The same for melanger, the same for tempering. And the idea is to recognize what it is in that bean and to change the parameters, and not be in the hand of someone that just let you some parameters in.
No, those are interesting points. It kind of reminds me of, I help a lot of people learn how to temper chocolate. Always people come to me, how do you temper chocolate? And a lot of people look online and they see, there's, oh, just melt it to 50, bring it down to this and that, and that's it. And they focus on the temperature, and kind of like the cacao, it's no, you have to know what to look for. You have to know that you should be moving it, not just focusing on the temperature. And, there's a lot of things that people, like you said, the parameters about the cacao, it's oversimplified. Even in the chocolate world, there's a lot of books out there that say, cacao from Ecuador is floral and it's amazing. It's like, well, some of it is. Some of it's not. Some of it's amazing and not floral. Some of it's not amazing at all, right? And like you said, is maybe the farmer they say, I have this genetic type of cacao, which everybody says is amazing. True. But maybe the farmer didn't ferment it properly. Maybe something happened that year. There's so many things. So somebody who wants to make chocolate, they have to know, like you said, they have to know what to look for, what to taste for, what to smell for. It's not a matter of just putting your trust in a variety or in a farmer or in an origin. It's much more complex than that. So that's really good. Yeah.
And especially because you can have a very good variety, very good terroir, and very good experienced farmer. And exactly in that batch, something was wrong, because was too much rain or was too much sun or something, was not that good. And you don't need to throw away the beans, I'm not saying that, but you have perhaps to put that bean for another product, or, what I want to say, not expect the same thing always, because the nature changes.
Right, exactly. Um, so you said that you spent about a year in Utah at the Aggie Chocolate Factory. So what brought you there, and what is it that you do there right now?
So actually, the Utah State University, they support the Aggie Chocolate Factory. That is amazing project because it's a real bean to bar factory with it's a small operation, but with all the machines for chocolate production and some machines for research. So it's
Hmm.
a wonderful combination. I really, invite the people that are listening now.
Utah is really becoming a place for craft chocolate, eh? There's a lot of
Yes,
big
a
center. Who would
lot
have
of
thought? Yeah.
yeah. And the place here, we have a chance to explore and to do research in chocolate. And they invite me to teach a discipline that in the last semester the name is Chocolate, History, Society, and Technology.
Mm.
So it's a discipline, to introduce the chain of the cacao and chocolate for the students, and they want someone that have a good background with cocoa production, not just with chocolate.
Mm.
And
Mm.
we met, and they invite me to come, and I accept, first of all, because I love to teach, and another thing, I thought that would be a very nice opportunity, to stay inside of one factory and in the same time doing research. That would be, super nice for my background and to help me to help my clients as well.
Mhm.
And here, for example, now we have a wonderful project to understand the behavior of the cocoa butter in order, to understand how can you offer better techniques for small scale chocolate factories. And that's, it's something wonderful.
Good, good. Exciting. What can you tell me about cacao in Brazil? Is cacao in Brazil, is it important to Brazilian culture? Is it more regional?
Mhm.
What do you think about the quality of Brazilian cacao?
Yeah. I don't know if I'm a best person to answer that because I'm Brazilian, so I love our cacao.
You're biased.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it's the highest reference that I have, so I understand very well about the Brazilian bean. And so the Brazil is huge. If you arrive to São Paulo and you ask about cacao, maybe people are going to talking about Nestlé and maybe Lindt or this huge brand, and nobody really knows about the fruit. I think the most of the Brazilian even don't know any cocoa tree.
Mm.
But depends if you go for Amazonia or if you go to Bahia, you cannot, spend a day without eating chocolate that was made for someone around there,
Mm.
or even, have some cocoa juice, or even the culinary, they use nibs or they use
Mm.
the cocoa juice to make some food.
Mm.
And this is amazing, it's like you go into a chocolate world, you
Mm.
have shirts of cacao, you have everything made with cacao, and the people really live the spirit of
Mm.
the cacao. It's a cacao land, and
Yeah.
actually we have a city that the name is Cacao Land.
Really? Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. Where is that?
So that's in Rondônia. It's in the Amazonia region.
Oh, okay.
And it's Cacao Land in English, but the original name of the city it's Cacaolândia. You
Okay.
know, yes, and there is a huge cacao in the front that everybody goes there to take a picture.
Ah, very nice.
So that's why it depends of the region. Some
Right,
region
right,
it's impossible to not to be in touch with the cacao.
right.
And talking about the quality, so we have to go back and talking about the history. We have a problem with the witch's broom, and before that, we used to had in the marketing export. We used to have the bull cacao and the South Bahia specialty cacao. So just to you understand how this region used to be important for the cacao world. And after the wheat boom, what's happening? The region was devastated for the plague, for this funk. And
how did the witch's broom come into Brazil?
so actually the most people agree that it was implanted in purpose in Brazil. That it's one example of bioterrorism. And the reason to believe that it's because the disease was put in the trees. The disease branch was put in the house trees. Yes, and it was made like in the cross, exactly in the roads that it's in that region that makes wind, and with the movement of the roads, it's much easier to spread around.
Yeah.
So that's why most people believe that was intentional. So anyway, and then after that, we didn't have any more very good cacao, and we have to find a new varieties that its resistance against the wheat broom. And some of these varieties are just productive and are just disease resistant, but it's not gluten and flavor at all.
Flavor, yeah.
No flavor at all. So, but I would say from 10 years ago, the farmer start to look for the final flavor cacao and to look for new varieties, and that it's not just resist against the witch broom, but they also have a very final flavor, very good final flavor. And now we have so many varieties over there, and the people are learning much better how to have the microbats and how to do a very good fermentation and dry process. And we have wonderful cacao comes. It's not, the last report that I received, that it's just 10% of the cocoa beans that we grow in cacao, it's for final flavor. So the most of the Brazilian cacao is just bulk, go just for the company that we already know, but we have a very good one. And this very good one, in my point of the view, really match what the international market are looking for. And the same thing. For sure, it's not all cacao is good, not all the farmer has a very good experience with final flavor, but
yeah, but you have the material there, right? So the witch's broom wiped out the sort of the plantations, where everything was sort of the systems were in place. Now you still have the material there. Like you said, Brazil is huge. I mean, South America is the heartland of where cacao came from. So it's more of a matter now of finding that material that's sort of out there in different areas, but then having to sort of repropagate it and maybe cross it so you have something more hardy, but still, like you said, with the flavors. So you have the material, but now the work is, getting that material propagated, having farmers to grow it and to start an industry based on that. That's the
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And especially, if you travel around Brazil, I would say that you have at least 5 very good region with specifically, characteristics and different cacao. So Bahia, it's some place that it's very involved in the culture of cacao. But for example, in Amazonia, we have something that is super amazing. The terroir, it's wonderful. And the other region that it calls Espírito Santo, they are specialized into varieties. So you can choose the varietal cocoa beans to buy just one variety. As, for example, the world of wine, you can have just Cabernet or Merlot or whatever. We can, select the beans just for the varieties, and you can offer this for your customer.
How do Brazilians view cacao and chocolate? Is it any different from your experience? in other countries, other parts of South America, maybe now that you're in the USA? How, is there a difference, especially between America and Brazilians, how they view cacao and how they view chocolate, and what are those differences?
Yes, the good thing, to be in a cocoa, in a country that produce cocoa beans is because from my point of the view, we have much more intimacy with the cocoa beans, because we are in touch with the farmer. The first part of the harvest, they send a sample for us. In the middle, they send again. In the end, they send again. And we know exactly what's happened during that harvest. If we don't like this, we can just talk with the neighbor. And we have actually a very good relationship between them. And I'm sorry, I don't want to buy your cacao this time because I prefer your neighbor's cacao in this harvest is much better. And once we are in touch with this material several times during the year, we can taste the cacao and recognize much better the qualities and the variability that it happens during all these things that can go on. And then it's also easy, to ask them, what kind of varieties do you have in your farm? Is it more, we have several names, just this names that is not a sex at all, just FFC,
Yeah.
the number that is terrible. But we know, which kind of crop each farm has. And even depends on the size of the farmer, they can tell you the region where this cacao were harvested. So we know exactly in this specific area that it's better of one variety that you like most or not. And it's much common that you can imagine it. And for example, for some customers, I talk with them. You can call for this farmer and ask for this kind of variety that I know that it would be very nice for you. Because I know the purpose of your brand and what you want to deliver. So this could be very good to match your product. And so since we have these, it's nice to play around of that. But in the same way, we are restricted just with the Brazilian profile, And when I look, for example, here, it's like a paradise because you can travel around the world with cocoa beans, And it's nice to have something that is far away, for example, from Asia, from Africa, that it's completely different, not just in genetics, but in the way that they harvest, then they ferment, and they dry.
Right.
And I think everything, the culture that they have, their influence in what we are going to taste in our chocolate.
Yeah.
And especially because, the developed culture, you have much more machines, you have much more tools to evaluate and to even small things, even scrape to do tempering. It's much easier to find here. So it's different world, it's much easier. A melanger here is just less than $500. We can get your melanger at home. In Brazil, it's very expensive because we have to import from US or we have our local producer there, but there is a long waiting list, to have your melanger. So,
yeah, I know some Brazilians who, when they go back to Brazil, they always have suitcases of stuff to bring to their family because it's because everything's so expensive there. Like simple things are so expensive for them to buy. Is it also difficult to import like cacao from Ecuador, Peru, Vietnam, Tanzania? Is that difficult for makers in Brazil as well?
We can't import cacao from a different region because, I think this is the same for the other cocoa produce countries. Because first of all, they want to protect the inside marketing. And the second thing, you can bring some disease from another country. I know that it's possible if you have some treatment, some roast previews in the country, but you have to send a lot of paper, to prove that this cacao there's no disease at all. And I think it's a very bureaucratic work and it's very expensive. So we don't have any cacao from another region.
It's
It's just
interesting
Brazil.
because like Argentina, for instance, I don't think they grow cacao there. It's pretty
They don't.
colder, not even in the
Yes.
north, right? So
Yes.
they can, I know Argentina makers, they have cacao from everywhere. I guess they can do that. But then
Yes.
you move one country over, Brazil, Peru, you can't do that. So that's interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's interesting because it also will shape the future of chocolate, the signature sort of chocolate in different regions, right? You have chocolate in USA or Argentina, which incorporates all these different origins. They have their own view on how to market chocolate, whereas in Peru, Ecuador, Brazil, you guys have you're limited to your own. But in a way, maybe that forces you, like you do, is to explore new varieties, new sub-varieties, new ways of fermentating. So you also have a wide range of flavor, but it's not
Yes.
different origins. It's working within your own. So that's really interesting to see what will happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And something that it's very important, I think this changed the way how we make chocolate. Because, to bring cacao, for example, from Brazil to US, you spend at least, if you go very fast, I would say 3 months, from the harvest until arrive in your factory. If you are fast, but usually, it's very common you receive a cocoa beans that it's like 2 or even more years old. Nobody really control, the expire date of cocoa beans. And in Brazil and the other country that grows cacao, we have like fresh cacao. That's good. That's not good. I don't know yet. What I know, what I knew, it's chance. If we leave your cocoa bags for 3 months, you can experience different profile. If you age your cocoa beans for 3 months, the acidity goes down, and then you have a different profile. So time is money. So if we hold that cacao, before to process into chocolate, that means you are instead spend money with some storage or even, with your money that could flow instead to just
for food, you
stay.
want to get it out the door as fast as possible, usually.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have a different moisture, we have a different humidity that, is still in the beans. So usually in Brazil, for example, it's super common to have the moisture of the beans around 7. And this is totally fine. But here in Utah, the beans that arrive for us, I do the analysis and I pick like 5, even 4.8% of moisture. That means it's changed everything when you're talking about roast profile, because one of the state of the roast profile is to lose moisture, is to lose the water. So we
the
had
water
to think
also influences the Maillard reaction, right? So if you have less water, you have less, you might be building different amounts of aromas, right? You have less water.
Yes, you have a different road. Is it good? Is it bad? I have no idea.
Maybe it's not good or bad, but you have to learn how to adjust your roasting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your reality. So and that's nice,
Wow,
because
chocolate is so complicated, hey? It's so complicated.
And that's why I think it's complicated, but it's fascinating the same way, because that's why you have to talk with your cocoa beans to understand what they want from you.
As far as reputation goes, do you think Brazil today has a good reputation with craft chocolate and fine cacao, or do you think people have different ideas of cacao from Brazil? What's the perception outside of Brazil, would you say?
So yes, I really want to invite as much foreigners as possible to visit our reality, because we don't have a good reputation in our flavor profile. This is
Why
one
is that?
reality. I think, I used to heard from the people that the cocoa from Brazil is not super excited, maybe when they compare. But, when I taste the beans and the chocolate, from my perspective, but again, I'm Brazilian, from my perspective, I think we are in the play, we have the same potential of the other oranges.
No, that's a good point, because I've tried Brazilian chocolate from other makers that do many origins. And to be honest, my experience too is the Brazilian origins, depending different makers, it's okay. It's nothing too exciting. But when I've tried chocolate made from Brazilian cacao by Brazilian makers who've used different types of cacao, wow, it's incredible, the flavors there. So if you're a consumer and you only had an American brand, Brazilian origin, and you're like, it's okay, I'm not going to try Brazil again, you're missing out on a lot of incredible chocolate. So like that really unique flavor, for some reason, is not exported out of Brazil, or maybe they don't know how to use it. Either way, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. And usually when you talk with someone that wants to try, you receive a 1 kilo bag of cocoa beans. So that means you have only one chance.
Not even a good chance.
And I don't know, it's funny because at my lab, sometimes I have a bat from one farmer from a harvest that I put like 110 degrees Celsius and doesn't show me anything. And then I have it at 120 and it's changed completely. And this is a very nice and wonderful cocoa beans just because I changed the temperature. So you have to play around. And that's why I go back to say, if you understand how to taste the cocoa beans, you can understand what that cocoa beans expect in the roast and then in the melanger from
right.
you.
The cocoa bean has its constituents. It has its profile of carbohydrates and proteins, and you have to learn how to bring that out, right? You can't force it. The roasting doesn't force flavors. The roasting only allows certain flavors to be created, right? So yeah. And I think that's what frustrates a lot of new makers, is a lot of them are like, just tell me what I'm supposed to do. Just tell me, is it this temperature? Is it that temperature? Is that time? And, there's a ballpark, where you can start, but there really is no right answer. It's not. And obviously a lot of makers who do a really good job, they're not going to just tell everybody this is what I roast at, right? They have a business. They want to protect some of their information.
Yes.
So that's part of the frustration, and that's part of the fun.
The fun thing, yes. If somebody asks me, what should I do? My answer is to understand what you want to do and what you have in your hands. But if you really want an answer from me, I can give, no problem. This is, you don't even need to pay me for that. But the point is, it's not what I want to do, because I want to offer the people the knowledge to talk with the cacao.
Right. It's kind of like telling someone who's painting a picture, they tell you, you're the teacher, and they say, tell me what color I should use. Tell me which way I should do it. It's like, you can guide them, but at the end, they have to decide, right?
Yes. What to do. Yes. And then going back to your question, this is one thing. And another thing, it's the Brazilian bean to bar chocolate is growing, and is growing very fast in Brazil. And I think we have different reasons for that. And the the easiest answer is because we have so many stakeholders from this, chain, that it's super exciting and put fire in these, to grows. One of that's for sure is the government that from the cocoa regions that it's invest money to improve the quality and also to improve the quantity, because we still doesn't have enough cacao to fill, the industrial park that it's processed cacao that it's the names that everybody knows: Barricalibo, Cargill, and Holland. And one of the reason is the government, but we also have, the farmers super excited to go into the final flavor. So they are looking for knowledge, and we have some schools, innovation center, and consulting that it's offer this knowledge, so it's easy to be trained inside of Brazil.
That's an important point too, because not all farmers all over the world who grow cacao are as passionate about it, right? Like you can see even on Instagram, a lot of the growers of the Brazilian cacao, you could tell how much they love it and it's exciting. And for some people in different parts of the world, it's just a business, right? They're a farmer, they're growing cacao, and not everywhere, but some of them don't have the same passion. So that's a good point as well, that there's that culture, there's that history, and there's that passion to help fuel it, even when it's not resulting in a lot of money right away. There's still that motivation. Yeah.
Yes. And another very important point is to educate the consumer, the people that in the end of the day is the responsible for everything. And it's nice because when you have this culture, it's in Bahia, for example, that is different from São Paulo, the region that I live. It's nice to see the small kids, asking for 7%, 80% cacao, and even chewing the beans,
Wow.
because it's the part of the culture. So, and we have some festivals, we have some, around the culture, those festivals helps to put the people together and to offer different way to enjoy the chocolate and different makers. And we have a special things for kids to work with chocolate so they can get involved, and we are feeding the future of our business. So this is another part that it's super important. So I don't know if I'm super optimist, but I think, the Brazil, we can be a reference for the other cocoa producing country to show them, not just to sell the cocoa beans, that this is a part of the business good. And we are going to sell our beans forever, but we also can not just offer our beans for the foreigners, but we can eat, we can enjoy, we can create, we can, and once we make these, we develop our economy, we develop a new jobs, a new opportunities, we need machines, and then for machines, we need a new technicians, and then we open doors for several others, professions, just because we are developing the internal marketing for chocolate.
No, chocolate can be very depressing. Can be very, you can be very jaded working in craft chocolate and things like that. So I think we need people like you who are very optimistic to push and help motivate everybody, because it can be rough for a lot of makers and people out there. So no, I think that's definitely true. And I think that what you're talking about in Brazil, because you have such a large population too, that helps. And I think it helps influence other countries that grow cacao, that, hey, they're finding this incredible cacao, they're creating this culture, they're educating their farmers and the locals and the consumers. Maybe we can do that too, So it can really be just like how, the craft chocolate boom in the US really ignited craft chocolate in other parts of the world, Brazil could be a place that ignites other ways of passion and growing in other parts of growing chocolate regions, or growing cacao regions. Yeah. So I don't know if that made sense, but
yes.
So you were saying that Brazilian cacao tends to be more expensive than cacao from surrounding countries. Why is that? And is that a barrier to craft chocolate makers seeking cacao from Brazil?
Yes, this is a one reality. And I have two answers for that. I don't know if somebody else have better explanation than I. But first of all, our labor work it's more expensive from the other cocoa region. And this makes me very sad because I know very well the reality of the cocoa region and in Brazil. And this is not good at all. We have to improve so much. We have the rise in the price. We have to help them because, it's, my gosh, to have a very good cocoa beans is not easy. That it means education, that it means tool, that it means, facility. And this is not easy at all. And in Brazil, what I heard from another culture is that our labor work it's more expensive, not good for our neighbors. And the other thing is, once you have a container of cocoa beans that it's ready to ship to another country, you have this whole amount, and it's much cheaper than just to buy some bags. In Brazil, once we have this internal marketing, we have price inside of the country to sell that bean. And when you come outside, the price to sell here in US is the same price in Brazil. And sometimes, believe it or not, we sell our cocoa beans for exactly the same price, but we had to spend the price to ship to her. We have all the paperwork or the importation tax. So in the end of the day, we don't have the same price because for the farmer receives much lower price for that. And it's hard to stimulate that, let's offer your cocoa beans for the international marketing because the marketing outside is bigger. Okay, it's bigger, but I want to receive the same money. So it's hard, it's on the same time, it's hard to stimulate the farmers to come to international if they don't at least receive the same money, at least the same,
Yeah.
And especially when you compare with the other oranges that don't have the internal market, they have to sell the cocoa beans outside. So they do what everybody does, when you need to be competitive, you put your price down. So the second reason is that, we really need some trade that believes in Brazil and have a very good relationship there and show the people, okay, maybe it won't be the good price as in Brazil, but it's a way to expand and to sell more cocoa beans.
Right. Because once it's out there, people start enjoying it, then it might create a snowball effect, might grow from
yes. And
but
we need
true.
a strong...
the farmers already, like you said, don't make, quite enough. So why would they want to take a cut? It doesn't make sense.
Yes, exactly. And it's fun because sometimes we receive foreigners there that it's very fascinating because another very good point, it's not at all, but the most part of the cocoa beans in Brazil grows into the forest. So, or in our agroforestry systems, or into what we call as cabruca. So the forest is just there and they put the trees below the shade. So we preserve our animals, or wild animals, we preserve our native trees. And so when the foreigners comes, they become very fascinated with, the environment over there. But then when they pay for Africa, it's even worse, because the price there is very, very down and very low. And then when you compare with Peru, and I'm really sad, because the value of the cacao is much more than that. But for the chocolate business, it's hard again, to be competitive, if you pay so much for your cocoa beans, it's not an easy job. And
Yeah, I mean, it's
yeah,
already, you think about it, it gets very complex because, from my perspective too, if I'm making small batch chocolate, I'm not a big producer. I'm not doing high volume. I got to sell my bars 12, 13, $14 to make a decent profit. And, even in places like Canada where everyone now too, like in other parts of the world, they're dealing with inflation. They're dealing with, people are going to Walmart more to spend money because it's a little bit cheaper. So it's tough. If the beans, if everybody wants a little bit more, everything gets a bit expensive. And then at the end, the chocolate makers in other parts of the world are selling really expensive bars, which limits who's going to buy it as well, right? And then if people aren't buying it, then it goes back down to the farmers as well. If I'm not making the chocolate because I'm not selling it, then I can't buy more cacao. It's a very, it's sad in a way. It sounds very
it's complicated.
disheartening, yeah, but it doesn't mean that there's not solutions, right? You just have to keep
Yes.
talking and thinking and come to some
Yes.
resolutions. Yeah.
Yes. And I think we are in a very good moment. Again, I don't know if I'm super optimist, but what I'm seeing around the world, it's not just in US, but also in Europe, we are talking much more about the origin, where the cacao comes
The
from.
origin. Yes, yes.
This at least call the attention for the problem, even if we don't have the answer now. But if you keep in talking and show the reality of the people that is growing cacao, if you show the reality and how the people can live well or not, and at least we are showing this for the consumers.
Do you think that, with cost aside, do you think that as far as regulations and bureaucracy and government, not interference per se, because they have to be involved, but do you think that that is part of the problem too? Do you think that can be more streamlined? Or do you think it is what it is and we can't really do much about that?
I think yes, but the main point is it's not just cocoa beans. You just said now the people want to go to Walmart to buy cheap stuff. The question is, why is cheap? Understand what I want to say? It's because, it's not just the cocoa beans. If you go through the sugar chain, if you go through the tea, the coffee, everything, in the end of the day, everybody wants to make profit. And a way that you can amplify your profit is to put down the raw material, because it's the weak part of the chain. If the people, for example, from Guatemala, from the other Central America country doesn't sell the beans, they don't have nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
This is trash. So if you say for them, I won't pay 10, I would pay just 8. It's what it is. They have to sell for 8 because they
have to sell.
They can.
Period.
Yeah, they have to sell. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
The market is that. So that's why, I think talking about that, it's become changed the mind. And for sure, the old business, it's run in the way what they are.
Yeah, I think this I think this will motivate people in general, these kind of conversations, to think about not just cacao, like you said, but just think about where we put our money, what we're buying, why we're buying it. Sometimes it's important to save money when you can, and sometimes saving that money going somewhere else might actually hurt you in the long run, right?
Yeah.
So it's important to think about that. Like I said earlier, Brazil is sort of the heartland of cacao, well, one of the countries in South America. And humans have been transporting cacao back and forth. Even before Europeans came, humans were bringing it up into Central America. And so there's a lot of genetic trade between, even today, between Brazil and other countries and other continents. So how has this shaped the genetics of cacao in Brazil? And how do you differentiate wild cacao in Brazil from cultivars? A big
Okay.
question.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a very good question. Since our last talk, I come to some specialists in Brazil to ask what is wild cacao.
Mm,
If they, have a white and black answer, is that. And even they don't have exactly a final answer, is this. But what they say is that the genetic material that it wasn't crossed between another variety, especially on purpose.
mm,
When you put two trees together, you have a third one. So, and I think this is a pleasure for all Brazilians to still have a wild cacao as in the beginning of the time, and the reason why I can say, because I already been in that region, it's because it's a region that it's nobody around.
mm.
You can go through with a boat like 2 or 3 hours without see any house, anybody over there, and you just see in the middle of the forest some
Right.
cocoa
No
trees.
roads, you have to get there by boat or plane or
Yes, yes,
walking.
and even in the forest, there's no trail, so you can really see that this is what it is.
Mm,
And to be wild, have to be, the genetic material from that region without any cross. This
mm,
is very important thing. And not to be cultivated. It's just, the seeds that the monkeys, the other animals, the birds, and the humans that live around just live there. They eat, they sow, and they throw the seeds around.
right, right.
And it's nice to see, because usually the shape of the wild tree is super tall, maybe 2,300 meters, not at all what we know as cocoa tree in the pictures. And if it depends, for example, if the monk eat the cacao and then when they, leave the cacao there, it's not just one seed that usually we make in the crop each 3 meters. It's
Ah,
a bunch of seed that the monk ate, and lived there. So it's like,
it's
uh,
randomized,
yeah,
clustered.
yes, and it's like maybe 5, 10 trees together in a
Mm,
bunch.
mm, right, right. So there's a lot of
And
signs you can look for. There's the way they're displaced, it's not even. There's no way really for a lot of humans to get there, and there's no crossing. Is that expensive in Brazil to test these and to look at the genetics and see how pure they are? Can that be very
yes,
costly?
it's not cheap,
Yeah,
not cheap.
yeah.
Yeah, and so this is the wild cacao. So we have it's one of my customer that's cooperar. It's a cooperative that they have a very good work with the riverside to collect the cocoa and to make the very good fermentations, and especially to keep it poor as is.
Mm,
They have very good cacao. Sorry, they have very good work to tell people, please don't bring any other genetic. Don't be fascinated with huge red pods in Bahia and in another states to bring here, because we want to keep this
mm,
poor as is. So this is a very nice region. That is, for me, it's one of very good example of wild cacao. Very poor material. And I don't have a very good definition for this from the people that I talk, but when I go to the field and I see, we have the native cacao. And the native cacao is the cacao that it wasn't crossed with another genetic material, but now it's domesticated. It's cultivated by man.
mm,
So the man, now it's putting the trees wherever they want, close to the house, and they,
mm.
are domesticated. But the genetic material, it's poor.
Okay. So the
So
wild cacao is pure, but it wasn't touched by humans, right? And the native cacao is taken by humans to plant how they wish, but it wasn't crossed with anything. It still maintains the
yeah,
genetic
yeah,
purity.
exactly. And this changed a lot, because to domesticate, it's far away, my gosh, easy to get this cacao. You just go through
Mm,
500 meters, 100 meters, maybe 1 kilometer to collect the cacao.
mm.
And when you have the wild one, my gosh, it's just being there to understand, what it is and how tall it is, the trees, and
Right. You're saying they have to climb the trees to
to have a small pod,
not
you
even a
know.
big one. Yeah.
Yeah, and the question is, how much do you want to be paid to climb that tree to get this
Exactly. I was
pod?
just thinking that, right? Because in Canada or wherever you pick in the US, you pick oranges and apples. Usually the machines shake it and it falls on the truck. Imagine now you have to go hand pick everything one by one and you have to climb a tree in the middle of the Amazon. Talk about cost of living there. That's yeah,
And plus of this, if you fall down and broke your leg, you don't have any hospital nearby to help you.
yeah.
Or even you don't have a boat that is good enough to take you there. So what is the price of the cacao? How
Yeah.
much does it cost? Cannot cost the same thing. And this talking about the wild and the native. And the native for me, when you're talking about the genetic material, is still with high level quality, but it's different. When
Mm,
you thinking about how much labor it's
mm,
involved to get that. And as a cocoa lover, as someone that is super exciting to this marketing, it's like the rainforest. If you don't take care of it, we are going to lose it. And if you lose it, it's lose forever. You know. So
I think
I
that's
really
what
want.
a lot of us don't understand these days because we're so removed from nature. We live in these cities and these towns, and we don't see the consequences of our actions, right? But if you're living with the nature, you see the consequences of your action. You see the garbage, you see the depletion. But if you're removed from it, you don't see it, and it's harder for people now to value, like you said, all of what you're talking about.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
important to talk about these things and show these things to people to understand.
to people. Yes.
And I guess where it gets great too, I was mentioning this to you as well, is some researchers suggest too, is like you said, there's the native that's obviously taken, there's the wild that hasn't been touched, but then, right, like thousands of years ago when humans were walking around from Brazil to Venezuela to Costa Rica, they were bringing it and leaving it. And that's also another gray area. It's like, if it's been there for 1,000 years, I guess it's considered wild, but at the same time, it's maybe not wild as spontaneously evolving in Brazil or something like that, right? So I guess that's why it can get very complicated defining what
Yes.
is
Yeah.
wild. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. That's why, I don't want to take out the merit, the honor, to be native,
Mm,
to be, the poor genetics, because if you can keep it, it's already a very good job, especially when you see the map and when I don't know, the Mayas, the pre-colonized people comes to, my gosh, what is that? I heard that they, to in order to arrive into Mexico, they have, to plant the tree and wait until the
right,
seed, the baby seed comes out, and then it's ready to put in another space and to stay there. And
right.
so this is wonderful as well. And this is a very poor material, genetic material.
Mhm.
We have to keep it as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, regardless of whether it's native, wild, how wild. The point is, if you come across this beautiful, flavorful, incredible cacao, find a way to preserve it, right? That's what's important from our
Yes.
perspective. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And if somebody asks you, what does Brazilian cacao taste like, or what does Brazilian chocolate made from Brazilian cacao taste like, what would you tell them?
Come to Brazil. Do you know why? Because it's super different. For example, we have some mild cacao that it's very delicate, it's caramel, it's nutty, it's a very mild spice. And we will also have something that is very, for example, from Bahia, it's very common you find a citrus notes. It's very fruital. It's much more for jackfruit, for orange, for um, um, some some spices. And if you travel around Amazon, it's completely different. It's much more the fruits change. It's much more juicy. It's much more pineapple, sometimes strawberries. And it's completely different. And in some place, you start to enjoy also floral. That's not super common in Brazil, but depends of the region. It's together with the fruits. And if you have the white one, it's high intense and it's very floral and it's the acidity is strong, but it's very enjoyable.
There's a lot of variability. Yeah, huge.
If Brazil were Europe, we could say that it was like 5 or even 8 countries in just one land.
Yeah. Okay, and so many makers, a lot of consumers, they put a lot of emphasis on the origin of the cacao. And we've talked about this a lot when it comes to flavor. So would you say origin, terroir is key, or are there other factors involved, such as genetic experimentation? We kind of went over this, but I just want to clarify it.
Yes, for sure, because we have so wonderful genetic materials in the hands of inexperienced farmers. So, once they don't know what exactly to do with this raw material, could be a gold in somebody else's hand that doesn't know how to become a ring. So
that's a good point.
It's nothing, it's nothing. So that's why it's super, super important, the work that's the research center, are doing with the farmers, teach them how to make the fermentation and how to understand. And again, not just follow a protocol. They have to have a protocol, but they have to understand how to manage it. Yes, when it's necessary.
Do you think that Brazil, I know you're very optimistic, but do you think Brazil is going to have a huge comeback in the coming years in regards to not only cacao, but just seen as an epicenter for craft chocolate?
So,
or is that too optimistic?
I think this is too optimistic. I think, inside of Brazil, the business is growing. And I think with this, we could call attention and receive people there and maybe spread the message world around. But, I think, to export chocolates, it's far away easy than export the cocoa beans because, to produce chocolate inside of Brazil it's cheaper and it's not a big deal for us. But I think inside we can grow and make very good business, but to be international will be a long way, and to be very well recognized.
Do you think maybe, like you said, it's easier to export chocolate than it is cacao? Do you think perhaps maybe, and that would be benefit Brazil too, because a lot of people believe in processing the cacao, making the chocolate at origin is also better for the locals, right? They have more income, more jobs, and things like that. So do you think maybe that might be a good direction for Brazil to go? Because like you said, there's a lot of craft makers getting excited, starting to make chocolate. Instead of looking at exporting more cacao, maybe becoming a place where they export chocolate. Do you think that's
yes, I think this is more realistic because we have the industry. So we have companies that makes machine, we have everything inside of Brazil. You don't need to import. And again, when you compare the labor work, for example, in Brazil, it's much cheaper than the labor in US, in Canada, in Europe. So, and then the end price of the chocolate bar would be cheaper than to the same bar, the bars
Right.
that were made
If
in
I were made it in,
US.
yeah, if I made it in Canada, it would be much more expensive than if somebody made it in Brazil and
Yes,
exported out of Brazil. Yeah. And
yes,
that would be a competitive edge as well. Yeah.
exactly. Yes, exactly. So I'm much more uh, optimist to thinking about in that way than Brazil as cocoa beans to
Right.
be a very big player in the
Mhm.
international game.
So those are all the questions that I have for you.
Mhm.
What is the best way for people to contact you, and remind us again, what are the services that you provide for people?
Nice. Yeah. So at Ara Cacao, we can, offer the mentoring. That is a very good product that I offer, a good service that the people that is want to go into the business, they come to my lab or even online, that I can pass through all the way from the production and to understand everything that we discussed here. And I have so many examples, the business in Brazil that passed through this mentoring, and now it's a professional business in the marketing. And we also have, for demand, if the company need to talk, for example, about viscosity or some issues that they
Mm.
are having in the production line, they can contact me, and I have expertise and knowledge to discussion, maybe be more assertive to solve this problem.
Right. So even if they already know how to make chocolate, but they have some troubleshooting, they can come to you and you can help resolve that.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And in the same way, to create new product, for example, they already have the bars, but now they want
Mm.
bonbons, or they want, to explore another product, they can come to me. That it would be a pleasure. And I think the easiest way to contact me is by my website, that is www.aracacao.com.br, or by Instagram, that is ara.cacao.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Luciana. Very, very nice to talk to you. I learned a whole lot, and I hope you have a lot of success with your business and your research, your development, and hope to talk to you again soon sometime.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you very much to invite me, Joseph. It's a pleasure, to stay here, and let's be in touch. I'm super
Yes.
excited all the time when I have a chance to talk about cacao.
Me too. Wonderful. Okay. Thank you
Wonderful.
so much. You have a good day.
You too.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye. Download the free Bean to Bar app to connect with incredible chocolate makers from around the world. Also, be sure to visit beantobarworld.com, your portal for all things fine chocolate, virtual tastings, free learning resources, research, and much more. Subscribe to the newsletter to stay in touch, and donate to the free app and free resources here. Contact me for any chocolate-related questions you may have.